Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Certainly of major consequence on the bubble. There were a few, but this was the biggest one in a positive direction. And it came Wednesday night, as I said, at Bud Walton Arena, beautiful Fayetteville, Arkansas. I love my Fayetteville people. Had a blast when I was there last year. But listen, we've talked a lot about Arkansas. We've talked a lot about this team. They obviously started 0-5 in the SEC, 1-6 overall. We don't need to relitigate that because they have been playing their best basketball of late. 2 wins in the last 3 games. You win at Kentucky. You win at Texas. And by the way, you had a chance to beat Alabama, the number 2 team in the country, maybe the best team in college basketball. We'll find out this week. And you had a chance to beat them at Bud Walton on Saturday. I thought that was a positive step in the right direction, but it doesn't change the fact that as you get set to host LSU Wednesday night, you simply cannot lose that game. You cannot lose that game. It is essentially a must win. It's one of the few games in the SEC, especially at home, that is going to look bad on a resume. Well, I bring it up because it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always perfect, but Arkansas gets the victory over LSU. Final score 70-58. A struggle from the beginning. They close out strong. Arkansas has now quietly won 4 of 6 overall, 3 of their last 4. And listen, I think we mentioned it the other day, but they were the first team out in Joe Lunardi's bubble situation. Well, guess what? I think they're probably in the next bracketology from Joe Lunardi. Certainly plenty of opportunities left to improve that resume. But again, this was a game that you simply could not lose if you were Arkansas, and you did not. Listen, bottom line is we're a day and a half, 2 days removed now. I don't need to break down, at the 9-minute mark this happened, and at the 4-minute mark that happened, and if that, it's like, no, we've been there, we've done that. The bigger picture is, I think really what is the state of things at Arkansas in terms of the bubble picture, NCAA tournament, et cetera. But really, what has led to this turnaround? Because we are talking about a team that, as I said, has not only won 3 of its last 4, but 2 of those are really good wins. You win at Kentucky. We know about the emotion in that game. And then the Texas win. I know Texas isn't playing well, but all the advanced analytics, the betting markets, they all thought Texas was going to win that game. Arkansas goes and gets the victory. And I also think, by the way, it's a positive side that you could play poorly against LSU for a big stretch and still win going away by double figures. This team is improving. The big question is why? In my opinion, there are 2 obvious reasons. One we've discussed, one we probably haven't. And I'll tell you this. Cal was notorious at his previous stop for the midseason tweak. I think we officially got our midseason tweak from Cal, and it is paying dividends it's paying big dividends is what the point that I'm trying to say. I'm tripping over all these big Noah Webster words here. By the way, Noah Webster from the same hometown as Torres. Fun fact. All right, let's get back on track. Let's talk Arkansas, and let's talk about the things that have changed that have allowed Arkansas to win 3 of its last 4. The first one's obvious. The first one we've talked about. Listen, I hate to say it. This team is playing better without star point guard Boogie Fland, okay? I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he's a bad kid. But we've talked a lot about, first of all, the stats just back it up. They've won 4 of 6, 3 of 4. Certainly their 2 most impressive wins in SEC play have come since he left. And so to me, it's just the truth. And it doesn't mean he's a bad kid. It doesn't mean he's a bad player. But what it really boils down to me, and I've said this before, is that I do think it allows kind of the roles to kind of figure themselves out, right? Listen, I know Cal took a lot of heat for only taking 9 really playable players, if you will, in the offseason. But even at 9, I think he was having trouble figuring out that rotation. And so Boogie Fland goes down. We've talked about it before. I think it is worth noting. It's a situation where it just allows everybody to kind of be the best version of themselves. And I think more importantly, play through mistakes. We've talked about the fact that DJ Wagner is now he's PG1. There's no, are you on the ball? Are you off the ball? Sometimes you're the point guard. Sometimes you're not. Now he's just PG1 and you're playing like 37 minutes and you can play through whatever mistakes or issues that you have. Janelle Davis, Nelly Davis, I think it's important. He was kind of the third guy. Is he a ball handler? Is he off the ball? Where does he fit in this offense? Now there's no doubt. He's the number 2 guy, and he's a guy that you basically need to deliver every single night. And for the most part, he largely has since Boogie Fland got hurt. Again, it's not a criticism of Boogie Fland. It's just reality. And I would also say this. I think really, and I'm a Coach Cal defender, But I think what has ended up happening is there are fewer players in the rotation. There are fewer guys to go to when things go bad. And listen, I love Coach Cal, but this is something I've been critical of dating back to his previous stops. Is I think he is too quick with the pull sometimes when a guy makes a mistake. Well, now you only got 8 players. You got to let guys play through mistakes. I think Carter Knox, I was going to say Carter Bryant, who plays at Arizona. Also, there's another Carter Bryant who's a friend of mine, but that's another conversation. But Carter Knox, listen, early in the year, he made one mistake, one turnover, one missed defensive assignment. He was yanked. Now it's like you kind of got to let him play through it. And I'll say this, I think he's quietly been a really good player for them. Billy Richmond plays his butt off. He played 22 minutes the other night because they had no choice but to. So that's the obvious number one. Fewer players can be better in some cases, and I think it is there. But you know what the major tweak is? You know what the difference is between this team and 3 or 4 weeks ago? There's no other way to put it. Coach Cal is letting Z cook, letting Big Z cook, okay? And so Big Z's Zvonimir Visic, we've talked about him really a lot in the last 18 months or so. This was this 7'2" kid from Croatia, commits to Kentucky. There's a big, like 6-month battle to get him eligible. All sorts of crazy documents. You fly, first of all, he not only eligible, they weren't even able to get him into Kentucky at first. And that was, I thought, an insult to the kid because, the admissions department was just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. He had the grades, he had the test scores. There was no reason he shouldn't have been admitted. But I bring it up because the bottom line, 7'2", great 3-point shooter. But what I also think is true about a player like Big Z is, listen, he is a guy that you kind of have to figure out the best way to use him, right? He's not a traditional 7'2" guy. He's a great 3-point shooter, 44% on the season. And it's been kind of interesting to watch Arkansas and try to figure out, for them even to figure out how to use him with these other big guys. Early in the season, Jonas Adu is hurt. Trevin Brazil missed some games. Guess what happens? You have no choice but to play Big Z. He's phenomenal. Then Jonas Adu comes back. Trevin Brazil comes back, and you're trying to figure out how does it all fit. Jonas Adu is more the traditional center. They're probably a little bit better defensively with him, but he's struggling. And I'm not criticizing the kid. I'm just stating a fact. And so about 3-4 games ago, going into Kentucky, Coach Cal was just basically like, we got to play this kid. We got to let him be him. And again, another example of a kid that they're letting play through mistakes. Well, guess what has happened? He has been basically he's basically been playing at an all SEC level about the last 4 or 5 games. And it was interesting because he was the best player on the court on Wednesday night in the LSU game, finished, as you can see on the screen, with a total of 25 points, 3 of 5 from 3 from a guy that's 7'2". Well, after the game, Chin Coleman, assistant coach at Arkansas, went to the podium in place of John Calipari, had some very interesting comments about the role that Big Z plays.
Z, we're taking advantage of his skill set. Z is a unique individual in terms of his size, his skill, and his ability at 7'2" and able to play on the inside and outside. He's probably one of the better 3-point shooters in the country, definitely in our league. So coach is doing a good job of utilizing his skill set. And the one person that is more simpler in terms of schematics, defensive schematics, is a pick and pop 4, pick and pop 5. You can pretty much get a shot for that guy when you want to get a shot for that guy, because typical normal 5 men aren't used to guarding some of those actions that we put Z in. And so you can kind of find a way to get a shot.
So that was Chin Coleman, assistant coach at Arkansas, talking about Big Z. And listen, first of all, he's not the first coach to say like a pick and pop 5 is one of the most impossible players to defend because of the ways that he can beat you. I remember when Hubert Davis got the job at UNC, and Roy Williams had kind of played those 2 traditional back to the basket centers. Hubert Davis, like, I want a 4-man, a 5-man that can stretch the floor and make plays. 2 best seasons at UNC, not to make this a UNC segment, but they go to a Final Four in year 1. It was that kid Brady Manick. Remember him, transfer from Oklahoma, who was basically their best player as a pick and pop 4 guy. So I don't mean to be nerdy. I don't mean to nerd out. But what I will say is Z has been a completely different player about the last 4 or 5 games. Matter of fact, I thought our Torres on the Hogs account had a great tweet about this. Bruce, you can pop it if you want. Just said, Big Z, the last 5 games, with a picture of Dirk Nowitzki. That's basically who Big Z has been, though. I mean, listen, the stats on this are absolutely incredible, okay? The stats on this are incredible. In the last 4 games, again, Arkansas is 3-1 overall in those 4 games, okay? Well, guess what? Big Z in those games is averaging 19 points per game on 54% from behind the three-point arc. And it's not like he's taking 1-3 a game. I mean, I think he's taken about 4.5 threes per game over that stretch. And he's also playing actually very well defensively, averaging like 2.5 blocks during that stretch as well. So to me, this has been the difference. To me, this has been the X factor. And to me, this is the tweak that Cal deserves credit for. It would have been easy to say Jonas Aidoo's the big high-profile transfer. Jonas Aidoo's the guy that, frankly, I don't know this, but I would assume is probably one of the big earners in NIL. Instead, Coach Cal is like, Big Z is helping us win right now. Big Z is playing at an all-conference level, and I cannot wait to see what happens with them next. Really quickly, I will say this too, because when I tweeted something positive about Arkansas, you know what happened on Wednesday night. You had a lot of fans of a lot of other schools say, oh, who cares? They're not going to make the tournament. All I'll say is, listen, I've said it a few times. This window for Arkansas is actually much wider open than I think a lot of people realize. I mentioned it a minute ago. Joe Lunardi had them as the first team out on Monday going into the midweek games. And first of all, a lot of bubble teams lost even in the SEC. Texas takes a loss to Alabama. Georgia loses to Mississippi State. And so I know that LSU is not a great win on paper, but you had to win that game, and they do. And what I keep going back to is in the SEC, there's just so many great opportunities for wins, and there's very few losses that are really going to hurt you. Really, the only loss that's going to kill you if you're Arkansas right now, you got to win at South Carolina. But the rest of these games, not only are they mostly winnable, but you win any of them, they're going to look great in the metrics. And so, listen, I think it's a little early to say if they do this, they'll definitely be in. If they do that, they'll definitely be out. But you see a record like 15-9, and you think, whoa, you got, what is that, 7 regular season games left? I mean, you got to win. You got to go at least, let's see here. They have, 7 regular season games left. Well, you got to go 6-1. No, you don't. 4-3, I would say, definitely gets you in. I think 3-4 probably has you on the bubble and very comfortably in. And listen, you go 2-5, you could still get in with a win or 2 in the SEC tournament. So I just want to give Cal some credit. I, among everybody else, was very critical during that 0-5 start, but he has turned things around. This team's playing his best basketball. You got to give credit to him for his tweak. And if you are an Arkansas fan, make sure you're following our Torres on the Hogs account.